All right, so can I just please have everybody's attention? We're going to present the first group's outcome of the last breakout session. So, which group number was this? You guys, if you want to, thank you. So we're just going to now come back after going through this extensive document that I hope helped everybody to clarify what are the thoughts for the campaign, what are we going to talk about, and how are we going to solve this issue. So I ask each of you guys to present what is your ask, and then the 3 approaches that you have chosen. And if you don't have 3 at this point, it's okay, because we're going to combine them anyways and identify the 3 most important ones. So if you want to get started.
Sure. So our ask is encouraging and educating society to see and value the importance of a girl's education. Our first approach would be target the community leaders and really have them be take charge of this, and which then they will go to the schools and educate the teachers, and then the teachers can help educate the parents. And then our second approach would be to have spokespeople who have seen success, women who have seen success in their careers, who have gone in education, so they can be role models for the young children. We had 2.
Thank you. Thank you. Next group. Do you guys want a second and I go with them? Do you guys have anybody presenting from your group? So they're all looking away. I guess that means no. I give you another second and we go with you guys. Perfect. Even better. Go ahead.
Hello. My name is Kenese. I am from Botswana. In my group, I am with McLean, I am with Paru, I am with Michelle and Matisse. Oh, Oma! I didn't see you. We have 2 approaches that we believe can help us take the message of encouraging gender equality in education. The first approach is creating society-to-society pressure in terms of celebrating the society that is doing well, or that has sort of working approaches towards equality, and then have that society take pride in that and influence other societies to take the same initiatives. The second approach, we would like to use sort of reinforcing positive behavior, reinforce positive approaches to equality through incentives. We believe if we are to incentivize governments and societies that have positive approaches towards gender equality in education, then the same governments and societies will help us translate that to other stakeholders below them, and at the end achieve gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Next group, please.
Princess Ellie's here.
Okay. Works for me.
So I'm Ellie. Our group is working on gender equality problems in education. So what we wanted to do was to bring the issues and statistics to the attention of the people. But we wanted to also show women who are successful in all the different types of fields and what women can really bring to the table in higher positions. We also wanted to include men who work with women side by side in those successful positions. I know, it's impressive. So some possible approaches for us would, we wanted to implement the social pressure. We really wanted to connect more men to men, since men would be our general target for this issue. So men are more prone to listen to other men talking about this topic and bringing it to the attention, as opposed to just women talking about this topic. We also wanted to, like I said previously, show the success of women in the working force while working with men, to see how they've accomplished more with both genders working together than just the one.
Perfect, thank you. And the last group, please.
Hello, I'm Kate Pejman. I'll just put my pen down. So basically, when addressing gender equality in education, the definition that we came up with was equal access and opportunity for both girls and boys at all levels to have free access and opportunity to education and play. And so one of the stats is that 101 million children are currently not enrolled in schools, and more than half of them, and growing, are women and are girls. And most of them live in Asia and Africa. So the intention behind it was that we wanted to, we decided that the intention of the campaign will be that our target will be students, and we talked about different groups within the groups that fall under the whole umbrella of students. So that could be kids in elementary school or in high school or in college or in universities, and even young adults who may have dropped out of high school but want to go back and study more. And so that the three the possible approaches, we thought in order to have a successful campaign, we didn't want to just limit ourselves when it comes to any group, and we wanted the campaign to be global, so anybody could be a part of it and could sort of grab that concept and that intention and the value behind the campaign and apply it to their own situation. So that meant that we had to think about how to approach policymakers, politicians, people at the community level, and as well as individuals and the actual students. So the way that we decided to sort of engage people at a higher up level would be that, for example, in Canada, we have ministers that do different things. So we have the Minister for Training, Universities and Colleges. We have the Minister for Economic Development. We have a Minister for healthcare, education. So the way that they would do it is we would get one minister to sort of say in a video clip, or however that would look like, to say, this is what I'm doing in my current role when it comes to creating opportunities that would address gender equality. And then at the end of their video, they would name a specific person and say, for example, another minister, what is your group, what is your team doing? How are you making a difference? So on a policy making level, professionals would be tagging each other, and also because they operate at such a high level, students, the community, and the public are following them. So that's like the fastest way to do it. And a similar approach would be applied to people at a community level. So that means head of universities, the business owners, including parents. So it would be very much like people individually saying how they're creating opportunities and tagging people on their level. And the same would go for students. And the reason why we sort of applied the same methodology was because as general as the concept needs to be, but we want to create as many stories as possible, and it sort of needs to be applied to each person on an individual level. So that's where we figured it out.
Thank you. So what do you think?
So
go ahead.
I think what we see here is you want to apply social pressure, get community leadership, right? So I think that the sort of the takeaways and what is the norm here, leaders, tap into the leaders, obviously has to be global and involve next generation and apply social pressure. Community leaders are the spokespeople, right? As well as other players. So now what we want to do is we really want to narrow this down to 3 items that represent. So if you look at page 3, right, possible approaches, these are the 3 possible approaches. So now what we're going to do as a group is we're going to start to look at, from these possible approaches, right, leadership, Let's combine these things into three.
So I think global is just a general theme,
Yeah.
that the campaign is going to be global. So we can narrow it down to three.
But see, one of the things that we need to dive in deeper here is if you see in the possible approaches, create peer-to-peer social pressure, right? And then you look below and we dive a little deeper that says, what does that mean? Right? Get guys to ostracize others for not getting a yes. Invert a term like blah, 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 right? Provide the characteristics, guilt trip. Celebrate heroes. So celebrate heroes is a good example of sort of where you all have kind of led this conversation, right? So if we're celebrating people, celebrating community leaders, highlighting success stories, how are we going to do that, right? And here and what we want to do right now is kind of define what that path, now that we've identified this, how does that apply to, gender equality in education? So now we need to really narrow it down, and we don't need to break up into groups anymore, but I think we'll do it sort of class style and start to, come up with some different approaches and ideas that are more narrow so you can build the campaign around it, right? So when you look at this and you see that the second bullet item under number 1, right, that was really one of the catalysts that defined where we came up with It's on Us, right? It was kind of like, okay, that was the aha moment. And we said, hey, don't be that guy. It's like, hey, wait a second. How do we express that? And that's how you sort of start and then create a campaign, because you anchor it around that one thing. I mean, everything that we're making you all do is really a byproduct of kind of walking you down the road and educating you on how to, process the funnel and then come down to the idea, which is then becomes the campaign. And then becomes, the point of action and how you engage people. Because again, with social media, as much as advertising, if the message is too broad, you lose people. If you're not connecting with them emotionally, you lose people, right? And in social media, as much as many messages that you all send to each other and see on a daily basis, is how can you come up and how can we here come up with something that we could walk away and say, hey, look, this actually targets gender equality in education. And right now we're going to go through what will be a little bit of the most difficult part, which is we're up here. We got the big picture. Now we need to really land this and figure out what is it as a group, right, which is the more difficult part that we could then agree on that is going to be the core message as it relates to gender equality problem in education. I mean, this is definitely a challenge. And I think that, we'll do as Eliane, why don't we just start working through.
Exactly, and I think there are some general themes that are always repeated in what you guys came up with. So it's always, everybody kind of mentioned this, like, okay, it needs to come somehow from the top. People need to be made aware that something is happening and there needs to be this shift in people's mindset. But then there's also the other side where a lot of your groups then take it from the other side, bottom up, and really say it's up to the student. And there was this one example, and my apologies for not remembering who said it, but the idea of, not having the girls try to push themselves, but having the opposite. So it's really the peer-to-peer from the student level. So I think in that sense, it already reflects in here, okay, we need to bring it down from, let's say, the grown-ups teaching their children that gender equality in schools is important, but also from the other way around, that the children promoted amongst themselves in the community the necessity for gender equality, because it is a problem that most people are not actually aware of or even consider. And then,
again, and the goal is this is global, right? So it's for everyone, right? So I think that's really the most important, because we started with global, then we kind of got lost into very localized. But again, anything that is, again, it's got to be a global message. And I think we should just start to work through this to get everybody's input and put a list of at least 10 different areas. Maybe Nita.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I can just use off this one. So let's start with the top level of how do you see the approach being created from the top, bringing it down. And in terms of, think of it in terms of really like an approach. How do we get this message across using leadership to communicate this message? you look like you have.
Well, how are you gonna like? Listen, you guys are like all half asleep right now, right? How are you gonna get somebody excited? How are you excited? What angers you? What really gets you mad about the lack of equality of gender in education? Right? When you got up and you were up there talking about the problems in India, you know, we did a campaign. We worked at WPP, which we talked about. Our challenge in coming up with a campaign was called Teaching Men. Right, and they basically came to us, and it was a workshop like this, but it was all advertising executives, and it was like a weekend again, just like what you guys are doing. And what it was I'm giving you this as an example to kind of get you motivated. Is they broke us up into groups, and they said, okay, teaching men, and the problem was talking about India as a specific topic and saying, okay, how do we get rid of the problem of that men follow what other men do? And that we can't, just media itself isn't powerful enough to redirect culture, right? But we have that power within ourselves by just being that example. So with the topic of men, teaching men, the winning sort of, the winning concept that was utilized was saying, okay, using a client like Gillette. Okay, Gillette utilizes, and they sell shavers, but lately, over the past, we'll call it the last decade, they sell more razors by sexualizing the concept of shaving, right? So in every aspect of shaving, even for men and for women, right? So it's a sexual element, which then at the same time, it's not doing anything for gender equality because it's actually, it's doing just the opposite. And so we said was, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to use the element of shaving as an element of becoming a man, right? When you shave, because hey, you go from being a boy to being a man, right? So that whole element. So we actually did a little skit that showed a man shaving and a little boy saying, Dad, I want to shave. So he puts shaving cream all over his face, and he's sitting there and he's trying to shave, and the dad's like, well, shaving isn't just becoming a man. Being a man is being a man. So, basically his wife comes in and he's like, honey, he opens the door for her. So then the child, which is meant teaching men, will only pay attention to the dad, right? Will only learn from the father. So we said, okay, so the only way to create that sort of ripple effect is by educating men through the father, because we looked at different studies and we said, hey, because another guy who's throwing a rock or doing something mean to a woman is not going to listen to another guy, but he will listen to her father. So that was a lot of the challenge that we went through, but we came up with, again, is men teaching men under the context of the father. And what was cool on the creative is that the Gillette was going to use this was really, again, the whole creative of the young boy shaving with the dad and really taking and following the dad, how the dad was treating the mother. Because it also, again, it starts at home. If the father is not treating the mother the right way, then that's already perpetuating that conversation. And it's just, again, creating the problem. And so when we looked at it, we said, how does media play into that conversation? And said, okay, that's how, because media itself shouldn't be perpetuating and showing that women are sex objects, because especially in areas like India, then they are not only considered the sex object, but also kept in this other space, that where everybody's trying to change. So the media community also plays an important role. So here, and what we're talking about is how are we coming up with that element? What is it? Men teaching men in that situation, it's on us. Drink up, right? What is it that is going to be that sort of core of this thing that gets all of you excited, right? You guys choose it. I didn't, right? So I didn't come up with this. It was your selection. And you said, this is what all of you, basically, by process of what you all sat and talked about, that you care about the most. So what drives you? Why? What do you care? I'm going to ask everybody around, starting with you. Go ahead. Pass the mic.
Everyone has to be given the same opportunity.
Excellent. Here, let's write this down. Let's wake these guys up. Let's go.
Yeah, I think that there's not much education done, and that is why it's being practiced.
Lack of education. Go ahead. Lack of education. Come on, passion.
The only problem I have with gender equality in education is the fact of having a household being supported by one partner because the other partner is not educated enough to make a living. So I don't know how it ties in with this.
Yeah, that's actually good.
Personally, it's my experience what I faced in India, because as a girl, it's a lot of challenges, and my parents kept tried for a boy, and we are now 6 sisters, and they wanted boy child, really, and it's my personal experience. That's why I want to work on gender equality.
Right.
As an athlete and as a sports administration major, I'm constantly surrounded by men, and they're always trying to like think that they know more than you and all of these things, and we are not treated as equal because they don't think we're as good as them, we're not as smart as them. So to bring some knowledge that yes, we might be different, but we're just as powerful.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hi, my name is. Some girls are forced to drop out of school to be housewives or just to help around the house in some cultures.
Society. So kind of going off of what he was saying, girls are
Speak up. Let everyone hear you.
girls are pulled out of school at an early age in a lot of cultures, but an educated girl is going to contribute a lot more to society and their communities than an uneducated girl.
Just to kind of piggyback on top of that, and being an athlete, we are always told like teamwork makes the dream work. So we need to incorporate everybody in. Men and women together to do it all.
Women need to be included in the conversations with men and on the same table, and so it really does start with education.
Around the same
More respect in what especially female at high places are having. I have more respect on their opinion and believe on what they're doing.
I'm guessing the empowerment of women, that the belief that they themselves think that they're not as good as men, but really they're just as good or sometimes even better.
Going off of what Danielle said, some females think it is normal. Going off of what Danielle said, some females, because of this is built into the culture, they take it as as at face value, and it becomes normal for them. So empowerment and education. Yeah.
I guess piggybacking off Asha. Okay.
What are you passionate about?
Personally.
Why do you care? When you see something go wrong, and you see something, why do you get angry? Why does that bother you?
Okay.
Like what is it that you actually can be proud and say, hey, I want to tell others and I want to impact others, and this is how you create something that people are emotionally connected.
Okay, so for me personally, it's all about making the impossible possible, showing young girls, showing women that it sounds a bit cliched, but if you can think about it, or if you can visualize it, or it can come true. One thing I always tell my students is that no matter how impossible the dream is, it can be possible. Because when I finished high school, I said to my dad, I'm going to get 5 qualifications before I'm 30. My dad said, how are you going to do that? You know, I can't send you to school for that amount of time. I said, I don't know, it's going to happen. And I'm 30 years old and it has happened. So I always share that story with my students to motivate them that anything is possible, especially as women. And also don't rely on a man. You know, we are on the same level as guys. So let's push the boundaries and let guys start following us and wanting to achieve what we have done.
So the question of what drives you, I think for me, I see so many problems in the world, and just hanging out with you guys just made me get in touch with so many other problems that are not in my current immediate viewpoint in Canada. But I also think that in order to solve those problems, women's skills and the way that they think and solve problems and their perspective needs to be, by the way, I don't think this is working at all.
It is. It's recording.
Okay. So I think that women need to be at the table to solve problems, and they're just not there because of the lack of gender equality in education. So creating a sustainable development world needs women, and they're not there. So that's what drives me to get them there.
Actually, I live with two women, my sister and my mom, and they are the people that I care the most in my life. You know, and I've seen how difficult is for them sometimes to go forward, and because of many things. So my motivation is in my home, and I see them every day. So that's what motivates me.
Okay, I think that inclusion of men on gender equality topics, because if you are gonna build a world with gender equality, you have to take male and female because we are a team. So if you don't have male and female together, you're not gonna do anything with gender equality.
I guess for me, what drives me is that, similar to what other people have said, that in a lot of cultures, girls drop out of school quite early because they have housework or they have other responsibilities, like bringing up their siblings. But then there's also some cultures where girls aren't allowed an education, so equal opportunity is really what drives me.
I kind of look at things from a bit of a different perspective than everyone else has been saying, but for me, the gender inequality comes not just from the girls' perspective of it, but also men's. It's like a chain reaction in my mind that certain professions are more geared towards what your gender is. For example, nursing's more seen as something that girls do and not so much guys, but being an engineer is something that guys do more than girls. So, and then that relates down to your education, where you see girls not doing as good in math because they don't think that that's going to be something that they're going to pursue. So they go more into like the arts and writing side of things. So that's kind of what my perspective is and motivation is on this.
So, sorry, just for the notes, would you say it's a stereotype problem? Okay.
Okay, in my own opinion, I think that the gender equality.
Sorry.
In my own opinion, I think that the gender equality is a problem, part of the culture, because depend of in the way in which you are thinking about the problem. And at the same time, I think that it's a big problem that contribute in a bad way to development countries and increase the possibilities of different aspects of the country. For me, is a little bit confused because depend of the religion, depend of the culture, depend of the society, depend of the policy, there are different ways to achieve this problem.
And Napoleon from El Salvador, in my opinion, and we got a little debate here, is about one of the biggest mistakes about gender equality. Think that you have to have the same women's and men's in one place, because that's not gender equality. Sometimes we think that if we got 60% of women in one place, that's gender equality, but gender equality is how you establish good relations in between men and women, because at the end you can have the same kind of numbers of women in one place, but if you have the culture that Joel said, the machismo in your culture, is really difficult that you're gonna have a gender equality.
Okay, Lynn Sambili from Kenya. I'm a byproduct of a mental shift that happened. I'm a byproduct of someone who spoke up and who said I should go to school. There's nothing different between us in this classroom and children back home. You know, there's a younger version of you back home who has not been accorded the opportunity that you and I have here. So it's very important that we speak up. My grandmother took my mom and her 6 other siblings to school as a single mom. This is back in 1930s, 1940s. And she ran after a missionary and stopped this white man and told him, she couldn't speak English, but she stopped him and said, in Swahili, I need you to educate my children. And she was mocked by the village because everyone said, why would you want to educate your girls? But because she spoke up, then in turn my mother spoke up, then in turn I'm here, and my sister and everyone else that has been empowered. And so gender equality is all of us speaking up. It's all of us giving our younger selves, who are so many, there's so many children in this world, the opportunities that, you know, God has given us. So, oh, and then there's two things that you can't be denied that will open up the world: sport and education. We have those two. You sorry.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Wakey, wakey.
You guys are awake. I think it's important that, again, look at what we came up with and look at what we had before. And that's the whole point, is like, what are you passionate about, right? And this is like, we're talking about how do you create a campaign that, you know, something about social impact, because we're not selling a product, right? We're committing people to emotion. We're committing people to act, right? If we were trying to sell a product, we'd be sitting here trying to tell you, you know, how do we get people to purchase this? How do we get people to consume this? How do we get people to want this? And so basically, this is selling a product. You know, social impact messaging is completely different, and that's more, you're selling emotion. What we tell people is that we engage people, we sell emotion. We get people committed to the conversation and really engaged in passion to want to take action, which is really what you want when you're doing a campaign. So here, if we're looking at all the different responses, I mean, this is great. This came to life. And I look at this, and sort of then when you look at these different key phrases that came out, what identifies with the context of, like, when you hear it, right? Different but the same, household divide, lack of education, you know, teamwork, dream work. I thought that was great. You know, we are a team. How are we then going to create all speak up, really empowerment, culture, at-home life?
And just coming back to where we started a couple of minutes ago with these ideas, when we said, okay, you guys came up with all these things you can imagine doing. So from, again, top down, bottom up, but also within the classrooms, I can see how a lot of those things fit into multiple of these tiers. So how would you take, like, these messages that fit within both, you know, that you can have the President of the United States address everybody so they understand it, but also the kids at school in their classroom having that same passion about what it is that they want to change. And I think, go ahead.
I think I'm a huge fan of, like, a lot of, like, my personal takeaway of listening to everybody is a little bit of, it is a teamwork, right? Because everyone here has said it's not just the women, right? It's not just the men, and it's not just society, it's not just the leadership, it's everyone, right? Everyone plays a role. And you're right, what do we talk about? Global for everyone, community is everyone, right? Students, social pressure, that's everyone. So it is all of us working as a team, right? Another thing that, you know, that really struck me from here is visualize it, right? Is visualize that reality, educate others to see what you see, to see and believe the passions that you have, right? Because otherwise, how are you going to sell them on emotion if you can't help them visualize what that future looks like? What? Go ahead.
Can you say speak up, read up?
Speak up, read up. Yeah, write it down. And exactly, and that's how are you engaging? I mean, speak up, read up. Like, you know, let's pick out of all this. We'll pick like 3 or 4, and then get everyone's, you know, commitment here, engagement. So what do you guys see? Raise some hands. With some feedback.
I think you had something to say. I don't know if it's still relevant, but okay, perfect.
You had your hand. Go ahead.
I had a sort of a mini campaign. It's not a big campaign, but when you are talking about gender equality and some of the approaches that we can use, I started imagining a certain campaign in my head. So I don't know if I can share it. I don't know if I'm not sure if it's a proper campaign, but I had something in my head. I don't know if I can write it down.
Yes, come on.
Please, I will free some space for you. we still need this one.
You want to share with everyone your thoughts?
Yes.
There you go.
Where's the mic?
The microphone.
Show me in a second.
So, and I don't know if you guys want to talk about it while she's putting it down on paper, but what I'm trying to do here also is just group a little bit the ideas that are the same or that can be categorized as the same. So when you talk about a team, when you talk about a group, and I would love to get some input, but can you see how culture can be exactly the same thing because it's one culture, one group, and I don't know if you guys can identify any others that are along the same line, or maybe now that we've talked about it, new ideas that you guys came up with in the sense of really united together. Sports thing, right? My throwing skills are not the best, but yeah. I don't want to injure anybody.
Okay, this was just a thought.
Sure.
And it's not so much something that all of those have in common up there, but it's one thing up there that I've noticed that has had in common with a lot of really successful campaigns that I've seen. And I'm not just saying this because this was what was written on my thing, but I wasn't even going for this approach until I realized it. But like the stereotyping, like as like you can see it in this, how they talk about like guys and how it's like a common stereotype that they want to get laid and that's like the cool thing to do. So going about whatever means necessary to do that is the cool thing. I saw like a really awesome campaign by Dove. It was called, I think, Run Like a Girl. And they showed the stereotype of, they brought in these adults and it was, what is your interpretation of what a girl looks like when they swing a bat? Or what does a girl look like when they run? And it shows like this real like dainty, like they're always, very feminine, things like that. And then they bring in children and it's, what does it look like when a girl runs? And it shows a girl that runs just like a boy is running, like they're next to each other. So it's breaking the stereotypes and stigmas of what is perceived as what things should be. And that's kind of how I think we should go about trying to bring in this gender equality, and because there's just so many stigmas that come with it, and that's why there is this inequality.
Thank you.
This is the little campaign that I imagined in my head when we were talking about gender inequality. I thought of taking the societal pressure approach, where you call for action from one society to another, using one society to encourage another society to sort of take the same initiative that another society has taken. The campaign line being Brainy Beauty. Brainy Beauty is mostly a line that is used for mental games, games like chess, games like bridge, all the brains that involve a lot of thinking, mostly referring to those women who are sort of classified to be clever and then associating their beauty with intelligence. So through this, as I've already said, the society to be encouraging other societies to take pride in their educated women, and then we'll mostly use men to call for action. The society will take pride by calling itself the Brainy Beauty Society. Some of the examples that we might have under the campaign might include, this is just an example, I'm not into creative, so please. This is just an example of the advert. Our women have three certificates: the birth certificate, marriage certificate, guess the last one, Brainy Beauty Society. Something like that, so that we just at the end encourage others to.
Excellent. Thank you. As the campaign expert, would you like to comment?
I think this is great, and this is a perfect example of what the outcome should be of what we're talking about. Because, as we were talking earlier, right? It's how, what are you looking to get out of this? It's not as much as, hey, we're going to come up with this campaign, is how do you go about it? How do you activate your people? How to activate your community, your friends, your circle, and how do you go about creating a campaign? I think this is excellent that you've actually put this together in the middle of brainstorming with all this, because it just shows how, you know, hey, the tools that we've given you here, how powerful this is and how simple it is, right? You don't need to have an agency to put these things together. And, you know, like you just said as well, is about, you know, some of this messaging. It's about how we envision that future, right? Let's not talk about the past. Let's focus on the future. So I think within all this, I think there's a lot of awesome content. I've been told that you all need a break. So in a few minutes, we're going to give you a break again. You guys are like the union.
Yeah, you're worse than the union, if you know.
But we'll take a couple more comments and then give you your bathroom break. Hold on.
Okay. Thank you. I'm thinking, you're saying we need to forget the past, but I think we can bridge, not forget, sorry, let me rephrase that, with what I think. What if we have a campaign that involves grandmothers and grandfathers and young children? So you have grandparents talking about, and they could all be saying a keyword, you know. It could be school or education in their different languages, and you have kids, boys and girls alike from all over the world saying the same thing. And we just want to show the power of education and the shift in like culture, the shift in cultural mindsets, you know, that my granddaughter can go to school, or I'm sorry, I'm really obsessed with the younger self story. So maybe the younger version, the grandmother sees herself through a 21st century child, you know, and the opportunities that this girl will have as a result of education, she cannot be denied a century later. So, I don't know. I still don't know how to bridge the two, but I know that having perhaps grandparents and like 5-year-olds or 2-year-olds.
What I took out of what you said is the power of education.
The power of education. Bridge the past to the future. Yeah. The power of education.
And I think this goes along the same lines of a lot of things that have been said. So power of education, talking about girls, educating a girl will change. That's right here. Educating a girl will change a society. So it's more than just empowering the girl, but it's empowering the whole community, if you want it. And
how about educating a girl will empower this? What did you just say? Educating a girl will empower the society?
Community?
The community?
Yeah.
Educating a girl will empower the community. Educating a boy and girl will empower the society. I don't know.
I like where you're going. Yeah. No, first I had to process, but I mean, what's... As we all girls. Yeah, power. Hold on.
Girl and boy.
But then it also comes just back to the whole team idea that you guys brought up. And I know this process can seem quite frustrating, especially when I look at half of your faces. But as you also see, probably this is basically the most important component of when you try to put the campaign together is, okay, we know the problem, we know what we see as a solution, but how do we communicate it to the larger society so everybody feels empowered to do something about it? And this is exactly the exercise we're trying to do with this. And again, this is basically the most important aspect of when it comes to now creating a video, creating your social media, because everything will be focused on that message that you want to wake up that emotion from.
I have a question, and I don't know if it's out of the topic, but how do you deal when, for example, you have some countries that do not have too much access for use internet and social media? Because it's different to make a social media campaign here in the United States that everybody uses media and has a lot of access on internet. But in my case, for example, in my country, only like 23% of people have access on internet. So,
but you have radio.
Yeah, they use
you have
radio.
Newspapers.
Yeah, so
you have billboards. Yeah.
The answer to your question, they don't use social media. They've used other ways of, like their little slogans. And their little slogans, no matter where you see it, you already know exactly what it means, what it is. So here it's the same thing, and that's why I wrote down. So these little slogans are, what it is, and educate a girl, empower community, educate a boy and a girl, change society. That's powerful. That says it all, and that's a lot of what we're trying to do here is just get all of you to kind of narrow this down, because a message has to be translated into multiple languages. Like we did this campaign with the UN. It was called Giving Tuesday, and it was a global campaign about just a day of giving. So when we got involved, we started doing this, and what happened was they had not reached anybody in Latin America, because everybody in Latin America, they're like, ¿Qué es Giving Tuesday? And they're like, what does that mean? And so we went to the folks at the UN and said, you guys are going about it the wrong way. The message doesn't translate. So, what we did is we localized it. And we said, okay, we're going to create this. And it goes, un día para dar, right? So people could relate to it and understand it. And so exactly, but if the message was this big, then it wouldn't be able to get translated. Fast forward, we were able to do a campaign in 22 countries, over 400 organizations, 22 million people impacted, who picked up on it. And the year before, the beauty about this metrics for us was that we got involved, and basically the UN was like, yeah, we have Latin America, and they're like, we have Mexico. And it was like, that's not Latin America, that's North America. But it's just unfortunate how some of these organizations handle the delivery of media. And we said the reason is that you haven't really adapted it. And so that's why, again, with some of these things, I'm trying to get you guys to come up with something that we could identify with, and then it can be culturally, adapted in other areas. Again, like he for she was great because it wasn't hard, it wasn't words that people didn't know. These are things that, are easily translatable, A, and B, these are words that most people that learn anything about English are the words that they understand. So it was just really that simple, right? And then you could really create a story around it. What does that mean? Well, he for she. And then, one of the things that we were talking about was when we came in to design the logo, the way the UN Women had designed the logo was he, HEFORSHE. So immediately, the first thing I said is, I was like, your subconscious is immediately saying man is on top, woman is on the bottom. And never mind what everything else that if you cross the letter spells. And I said, so you can't do that. So you have to literally, I'm like, it has to be a little bit. We recommended he for she straightforward, but really on an angle up, right? To create that visual subconscious of looking at something and immediately already giving you the subconscious, which leads your conscious in media. So these are the little things that, an excellent question, because like you could utilize billboards, you could utilize newspapers, radio. So it's just something that becomes viral. And viral doesn't always just mean social media. There's billions of people that are not connected. Viral is how you're getting people connected around that conversation. Who else before you?
We were talking about how you can spread the topic or the real message in countries like Cuba, in which the access of internet is restricted, or maybe you only can watch TV in specific channels, in which part of the culture is only live in the same way or according of law. How you can spread the message in that kind of countries?
Well, in countries like Cuba, I mean, there is access to internet, but it's limited, right? There is only 3 channels, and it's controlled for the most part. And there are newspapers, but that's also controlled. So it's all about engaging community, right? Creating movement. Again, we know it as social media, but creating movement is creating movement around the conversation. We were talking about Ingrid Vanderbilt and what she's doing, empowering women by 2020. And what she's doing is building global ambassadors. So she's not launching a campaign. What she's done is she's identified leaders around the world to give them the ability to carry on that vision of empowering women. I'm sorry?
We have 2 of them in here.
Yes. 3. I'm on her board. So, so it's, you know, it's finding people in touch points around. So the same thing in Cuba, it's just about identifying local leaders. I mean, when we did this campaign in Latin America, it was 22 countries in 6 weeks, and we mobilized all these things. And we didn't mobilize it because we utilized a lot of advertising technology. What we did is we empowered people. And we went to every single country and we identified leaders vis-a-vis a lot of these networks that we're all a part of and said, who is an influencer, local influencer? I said, hey, look, we're working on this campaign. It's super cool. It's with the UN. Do you want to be our country leader?
Nothing Digna, right?
Well, I'm sorry?
Nothing Digna was one of UNICEF.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of these. And so basically, for example, with Un Día para Dar, and that's what we did, is we found, you know, a leader in Venezuela. We had like 5. We had people that said, I'll take different parts. In Cuba, we had 1. And, you know, and it was just about engaging people. And what were they doing? And because they couldn't use media, what did they do is they went and aggregated all these organizations and foundations. And they said, okay, so where are the hubs of leaders, right? So it's church and faith-based, right? It's community-based, yeah, exactly, civic society. It's sports-based, right? In most other countries where there's no other mediums of engagement, and then it's just, you know, schools and universities. And if you look at it, you know, most of you touch every one of these every day, right? And then when you look at a country like Cuba, and then this is how you start to activate people, and this is how, you know, we're part of an organization that's in 126 countries and has over 70,000 young leaders. And how, again, it's just you send one message out and you have people everywhere activated. And that's really how you start to do these things. But you also, but again, you need that, you know, that's the vehicle, but you need the message. What we're talking about here is what is that message that we're going to push through these vehicles, right? What is that message of, you know, that you've selected as gender equality, you know, which is a problem in education? Go ahead.
Sorry.
Please.
Completely, not completely unrelated, but another idea for, I don't know what goal is on environmental sustainability, but perhaps there's something that I've had in my head, but I think it'll be of better use here. A book for a tree. So for every book that's donated or given to a child, they have to plant a tree. So in that way, that's sustainability.
Nice idea. Launch it. Now you know how to put together a campaign, I guess, to go ahead.
Exactly. There's your campaign. Sorry, ladies.
So I was just thinking about the campaigns that have really made me remember them, or the campaigns or even TV commercials or ads that I would remember even after watching them. So I started thinking about what was it that made an impact on me, or what was it in their message that not only made me pay attention while I was being engaged with that content, but it made me take an action after watching that. And this is probably the silliest example in the world, but when I had a car, I had to go get winter tires because we go through winter tires like crazy in Canada. And there's like a million different people who sell winter tires. And I didn't know which brand to go with. I didn't know which company to go with. But there was one that talked about when you're buying your tire, make sure you buy, the thickness has to be this. These are the pressure points within a tire that you really need to watch out for when you drive over something. Basically, it educated me on what actually goes behind the scenes, like what is that factual, mechanical aspect of tires. And then I remember thinking, wow, that advertisement just taught me so much. And I went and I bought that specific brand. So I think that even though our campaign is about gender equality in education, for me, having a highly educational message or advertisement, even within a very purely marketing agenda, has always really worked for me. And I remember things that teach me that I go, oh, I didn't know that before. And I think because we just process so much information, nothing really surprises us when it comes to facts anymore. We're just thrown facts so often, so much. But if we can have that oh, I didn't know that. That's really, I would have never guessed that component within the campaign would be really, it would at least make an impact for me and make me want to be a part of it.
Thank you. Please.
Does that mean you don't want to break because you keep asking questions?
So some of the campaigns that, and I showed my group the Girl Effect campaign, one that's on YouTube. Some of the campaigns that have stuck with me and that I have actually learned a lot from are the ones that often highlight the problems first. So, oh, this girl, you know, she's not, if she doesn't get an education, then this is going to be the problem. She's probably going to be sold, I mean, for example, as a sex slave, or she's not going to have adequate health care, and she's going to have a child at the age of 12. And then after they highlight all the different problems with, you know, whatever the issue is, then they give solutions. And I think that if we make the campaign in that way, here's the problem, here are the statistics, but here's the solution, and this is how we can improve the situation.
Well, thank you. I think what you both are saying is true, which is, you know, it's part of that messaging has to, excuse me, has to open that door of education within the message, right? So that it intrigues you, because again, we're all flooded with so many messages that the message itself has to be something that it pulls you in. That's what I meant before by, you know, even selling emotion, right? Because you're connecting with somebody in a certain way where they're saying, hey, you know what, I could relate, and I want to learn more. And you pull them in, and that again is part of a campaign. You don't just do, you know, you're doing the messaging, and then you're sort of, what is the call to action, right? And then how are you getting people to follow up, and then how are you, again, that's why we showed you the It's on Us, because we created a community, and it wasn't, we allowed the community to select. We allowed the people to, you know, within each of the colleges, and 1,200 colleges and universities, basically all had someone that said, I want to be the local leader. And it wasn't anybody that we selected. The moment we launched a campaign, it went like this, like wildfire. Because everything, and what I was saying before about the networks, right, which is, you know, every single person came and they logged in on the website and says, I will represent Michigan University. I'm Alabama University. I'm XYZ. And then they went and grabbed the tools, because what we did was create tools. So then they went out and they said, okay, here's where you buy a t-shirt, here's the logo, this is how you use it. And here, and if you want to create a PSA, these are, you know, here's a PSA. And more than, I think it was a couple hundred PSAs were created, because the school said, hey, you know what, we love the model. And they literally all had like different faces. And if you Google online, you'll see the It's on Us. And they all, again, went as far as, you know, not just becoming motivated and creating that sort of connectivity and leadership in their school, but also creating their own internal campaigning, which represented them. And I think that's, you know, really exciting. Excuse me, take my phone.
And I think to your point, where while we're still in the process of developing this message, it's really afterwards that you then go out and really look at how are you gonna communicate this message, and then basically you get into what you just suggested, what you just talked about. But you can't really do that before you know what it is that your message exactly is, and that's.
So I think everyone's done an amazing job. You guys really came to life. I'm really excited. Thank you. You do deserve a break.
You all look like you need a break.
Well deserved. Well deserved. So I guess
a little round of applause for you guys.
Yes. So we got 15 minutes, 14 minutes, 59 seconds. My name is Sergio Fernandez de Cordova. I am chairman of the Public Foundation that's focused on using media for impact, and I was invited to come here and educate these young kids, young talented young men and women, educate them about the power of media for impact, and show them some examples, as well as create a workshop as to how we've done it, and working currently with the White House, the UN, and different organizations around the world, and how we're utilizing media, bringing conversations together, and really selling emotion and getting people committed to action rather than just doing a normal campaign. And so what we're doing here is educating
the folks here how to create their own campaign, and how to create their own messaging, and how to distill that down from a funnel, which is where Ilian has been very helpful in sort of helping us structure the conversation. She's been involved in every one of it with Public Foundation, and so I pass the mic to you, young lady.
Would you like to introduce me?
No.
You can.
Elaine Gonzalez.
So my name is Eliane Sussman. I am originally from Belgium and now live in New York and work with Sergio at Public Foundation. Together we have not only worked on these campaigns, but also really on the idea of empowering young people. We both see that this age group is the next generation of leaders that is already taking over this planet and that will be making all the shots and all the decisions in the future. So I think it's a shared passion of both of us, is to really, how do you provide young people with the tools that they need in life to get done what they need to get done. And one of the tools, of course, that Sergio has worked with for many, many years is the tool of media. But beyond that, we also try and help them out in connecting them to the right people, in introducing the right topics. So for example, today we introduced the Sustainable Development Goals, which some of the attendees were aware about, but not many people know of. And it is the upcoming development agenda for the entire world. So these are also then things that we want to get people involved with, get them passionate about, and then also tell them how they can communicate these messages.
And you know, when you talk about communicating these messages, I think where a lot of people get lost, and when you look at media, is that media is ever growing. Every single day there's a new platform, there's a new way to reach people. And I think where people miss the point, and a lot of what we wanted to get out of today, is the fact that the 3 people can create a movement. 3 people can change the world. 2 people, 1 person can. And you know, in the example that we gave with It's On Us, was really predicated on the fact that there was 4 people in the room. It was someone from the White House, a few people from our organization, and we grabbed an idea and made it into a movement. And that is so powerful, but it's not about, you know, us saying, hey, you know, this is what we did. It's how are we empowering others, how are we empowering others to do the same thing, and say that, look, it doesn't, we didn't go out and spend $100 million. We brought in people that were very passionate about the conversation. We went and brought in people that cared about the topic of sexual abuse, and students and next generation. So it's a lot of what we do with Public. And I think what's exciting about being here is to see these young leaders and see their thirst to want to figure out, what is it that I could do today? And they don't realize that all those resources are already at their fingertips, more than they can imagine. People in the media world, we just hosted a summit at the UN, and people in the media world are saying, they're like, how do we target these people? And these young folks are saying, how do we become mainstream? So it's like both sides are having these conversations, but yet both sides, or one side is obviously growing. Half of the world's population is 29 years old. You know, what's going to happen when, you know, the world is connected? What is one of the key drivers across all communities is going to be how we distribute information and media. So we believe that, you know, why we started the foundation was really because it's an important role in society, social impact, and the future of this world.
Well, I think actually a very interesting question was just asked by one of the group members, is that in my country we don't have social media. So how do I spread my message? So where in the United States, in Europe, and a lot of countries, social media technology is exactly what can drive messages, it doesn't exist in other countries. So when we think of starting a movement, spreading a message, we need to look outside of the box of technology and really engage all different means of communication, really.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not, you know, when you look at technology, technology is only empowered connectivity, right? Because when you look at back in the day, right, people communicated with storytellers, right? What is the Bible? Storytelling. What is, you know, everything that we've known for 1,000 years. So that still lives on in every community, and that's one of the things that I mentioned. People still congregate in churches. They congregate at soccer. You know, if you go to Argentina and you go watch a soccer game, it's a religion. You know, the guys don't come home Sunday. You know, there's a death in the family, forget it. They're at the soccer game. You know, and that's their local way of how they communicate, they connect. And so societies haven't changed, and a lot of sort of this next generation that are continuing to sort of come up are so technology driven that they realize that, you know, the world existed before technology. What technology is doing today is connecting people with shared ideas, shared values, shared visions, and really empowering change in ways that we've never seen it before. And I think that's really what's exciting about technology, and what's also scary at the same time, because technology can be utilized in ways that we see in mass media today, where people are using it to create harm. And it's all because clusters of people were not aware of what, you know, real democracy is or what have you. So I think you know, when you look at from Sustainable Development Goals, which is what we want to educate the you know, the folks here, is it's important is that there are ways that everyone can get involved, and it doesn't just mean technology. It means there's many ways that you could save lives, do your part, and it's the power of many, not the power of one, as one looked at philanthropy and social impact in the past. We don't need 110 Turners. We need everybody to be a part of it.
You know, I know exactly what I want them to take back, and it's something that actually already happened was, you know, we start talking about how to create a campaign. What is a campaign? We're at the messaging point, and somebody's like, oh, I have an idea for a campaign. I want to do this. And we just looked at it and we're like, take it home. Now you know how to create a campaign, so go for it. I mean, there's, at this point, really nothing stopping it. And I think that's definitely my takeaway, is that I want every one of them, the second they have this idea that they're so passionate about, that they want to share, to do it, because now they actually have the tools to do so. And I think Sergio and I were both more than happy to help them to get wherever they need to be. But, you know, when they go home, I'd be very happy when they do it. So,
to me, you know, when you look at what is a takeaway, is I think it was really important as a messaging and sort of an underlying thread across it all, is that, you know, media and movement is, and that's what I was talking about, emotion, is we're not selling a product, right? We're not, you know, when people think of media advertising, they say, okay, what are you selling me, right? That's literally the first response people always say. It's like, oh, you're doing this foundation, what are you selling? And it's like, we're not selling anything. You know, it's like if you want to call it selling, as we're selling human emotion. We're committing people emotionally, but you're giving them the idea that there's other things that you could do. There's other ways that you could give back. And I think that what I really was trying to engage everyone here was that I felt that they were being so very black and white, and it was just very pragmatic responses. It was almost like telling us what we want to hear. And I know that this was a topic that for them, it really meant something, coming from all these different countries, that is something that is near and dear to their hearts, to their families. It impacts them in every way. So it's like, well, wait a second, what the heck? I go, then why aren't you giving me that true emotion, right? Because that's what sells people. That's what gets people excited. So, and that's how you use media. That's my whole agenda, saying this is how you get people excited about a topic. People get excited about things that other people are excited about, that they care about, they want to know. And that's, you know, going back to what Leon said, is that then they go back and they're going to say, hey, I'm passionate about this, and I'm going to create a movement because I can. I think that's the most powerful takeaway, is because they can.
So the three things that we feel represent all these messages is, and it's always something along those lines, and it doesn't need to be permanently that, but the idea behind it. So we started off with teamwork, dream work, but also, exactly, you can also put it, we then heard somebody else saying teamwork makes the dream work, which is, can almost be two different understandings. Based on what was said here before, we tried to combine a little bit what also with these aspects and made it into something like smart is beautiful, something along those lines. And then the third one is a little bit more complex message, but I think also includes many of the aspects that were discussed, which is educate a girl, empower the community, educate a boy and a girl, change society. I think you all did an amazing job. Otherwise, we wouldn't have even been here. So now what we want to see with you guys is which one do you feel the most connected to, the most, like he put it earlier, the most passionate. What do you think is really going to create that change in people's minds based on people reading those 3 statements? I don't know if anybody...
What do you connect with the most, right? So what tells you the most? Even though this one is a little bit longer, this is the shortest, and this is in between, right? It's all, regardless, it's a message, right? And sort of it's the same, it's a message that you've all come up with. And, you know, personally, I'm biased. I already have a favorite. But
don't say it now.
But the, you know, it's, and then when we look at this and what that final one is, then, you know, what we do is then come up with sort of a phrase, a slogan, or something that just shortens it, especially if it's not something like this. This becomes a phrase and the actual, and as some would say, the hashtag, right? But, and then the next part of this is then we would go and you know, if we had more time, if we had obviously a lot more time, we would then literally start to create a campaign and start to create more of that brand, the conversation, the messaging that is going to go out. Because what we've done today, and what took us a little bit longer than expected, was to get all of you emotionally connected. To get all of you to really tell me why this matters to you, right? You've picked it, but why does it matter, right? And now we are here. Why does it matter? Because teamwork makes the dream work. Why does it matter? Because smart is beautiful. Why does it matter? Because educated girl empower a community. Educated boy and a girl change society. These are all very, very powerful, you know, sayings that all of you, you know, slangs that all of you have come up with. So now, again, given that we're short for time, we need to get to it, folks. What I want to get, you know.
Should we do a show of hands?
Yeah.
Voting? All right.
Dream work makes the teamwork. And then as we, 1 second before.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Before we pick. Whichever one we select, then we'll tweak. So if you're sort of on the fence about one or the other, doesn't mean that this is the final iteration. We're just diving to get to one. So hands up for teamwork makes the dream work.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
4. And no voting twice. I'm watching you guys.
So we got 4.
4. Smart is beautiful.
I got 3 right here. Yeah.
I got 2.
All right.
Educated girl, empower community. Excuse me. Educated boy and girl, change society.
I don't think my math is that bad to know that out of 21 people, if 6 responded to that. Oh, sorry.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Clearly, it's we've
narrowed it
reached
down.
Consensus.
Yep.
Now, when we look at this, you're gonna say, "Wow, this is exactly what you ladies were talking about," which is, "Hey, this is a message that." In the message itself, it's already telling you. It's stating, you know, what you know, how you educate a girl, you're empowering community. You educate a boy and a girl, you're going to change society, right? This is everything that we're talking about here. So now, how do we distill this down and create something that, you know, when you're putting a message out there, or something that we could relate to, and to narrow this down. So this becomes the theme, right? This is now the theme. What is? How do we narrow it down? Any show of hands? Any thoughts? Is it empower community, or is it what out of here, or a combination of here, kind of takes you there? What is that vehicle? Go ahead. Education is key.
I'm gonna write them down.
Education is you and me. Something short, folks. Remember, we're going shorter. So some hands over there. Go ahead.
Together we can.
Together we can. What is that?
Each one, teach one.
Each one? Each one, teach one. Each one, teach one. Each one, teach one.
Each one, teach one. Okay.
That's a tongue twister. I want to hear somebody
Like,
say it like 10 times really fast.
I'm still gonna put it down.
Each one, teach one.
Each one, teach one. Okay. But also think, because this says a lot. This says like, okay, you take a girl, you change the community, you take boy and girl, so the team, and you can change an entire society. So really think along those lines. And
yeah, you want to stay inside these four corners, right? Because now remember, listen to what you've said, but you're taking a little bit away, right? Because we're talking about educating and empowering community, educating, empowering, change, right? So go ahead.
Educate community, empower society. It's definitely breaking it down.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Educate community.
Did you have your hand up? You did.
To educate is to empower.
There you go.
T is empower society. Sorry, now my handwriting goes bad again. Society. Educate is empower is educate.
To educate is to empower.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back to the example that we used, right, which was before he for she. It's on us, right? Look how short that is, how simple, right? And this is what I'm trying to pull it out of you.
Do you want to say it? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's not as simple as what you're saying, but knowledge doesn't have a gender.
It's powerful, but we just got here. So that's what we want to.
I like it though.
It is good. Come on, yes.
Let me put it right here on the side.
Educate all, change all. Educate one, change all.
Ooh.
Not have gender. Okay. Hold that thought. Educate one, change all.
Educate one, change all.
See, we're waking somebody up here. We're doing great work.
Yeah.
Education for all.
There you go. See, now we're getting closer and closer.
Maybe try to think of some like synonyms or wording for education. You know, because there's a lot of education in here, but educate. And I didn't write on the one from before to elevate. Can you repeat?
Educate to elevate.
The one, no, the one you said before.
Education for all.
Okay. Let's just make it for all. Elevate. Okay.
Social empowerment.
Social, write down. Social empowerment.
Social empowerment.
Don't write it. Don't write it.
I don't know.
All right, so now when you're looking at this, and typically when we look at sort of once we've gotten down to what is the theme and the messaging, right, where you want to go, and this is great because this is the point of getting you all engaged here, is you want to stick within the four corners. That's what we're doing, four corners here. Educate, right? So in this case, my recommendation would be something like change society. Right? Simple. Keep it simple. Less is more. Don't change the messaging, right? Because although you're all getting excited here, right? It's you're driving somebody away from the core message, right? What we were saying earlier is that message, brings you in deeper. It brings you in closer, right? So how are you, when you see a campaign, right? And then sort of what is that when you're either sending somebody a message or you're either, when you look at sort of short form message in Twitter or anything, Facebook, or posting a message, is how do you then associate with that without having to write all this? It gives you that context. Go ahead.
This is just like a thought, like how you said change society, but I think your slogan needs to be more directed towards like what is trying to be say like change society, but then what does like that doesn't get across what's trying to be say like more like change education, change something that has to deal with the schooling system.
But
empower gender.
Yeah, like.
I mean, it is kind of.
I know what you mean. I'm just trying to get you to get it.
Yeah.
But also, when you first hear "It's on Us," you don't necessarily think of a sexual assault campaign. So it's really like what comes with the package. But once you look into the campaign, it makes sense. So maybe think about it that way. Educate, empower.
Educate, empower, change. Simple. That's it. I think we have one. Educate, empower.
The power of a nap. There you go.
Siebert, go ahead.
You should.
Mm-hmm. I think I just have an easier time when it's simple and quick and done instead of like typing like full word.
So what is your suggestion?
Yeah.
Exactly, devil's advocate.
Yeah. Change society.
It doesn't need to be change society, but the two-word combination.
Educate a girl. Empower community. That's why we broke it down this way too, to get you to look at it.
Is there a campaign that's Educate a Girl?
Educate a girl.
Google.
I think I saw a video on it.
Google question.
Yeah, exactly. Ask Google, let us know.
Even with these, you can break those down into different hashtags. Like you don't have to think about it necessarily in always keeping this together and making one hashtag out of it. But that's why we tried to put it together.
Where is it? Is there? Did you guys cheat?
Is that whole thing just made up? Yeah, right. Let me copy the campaign.
You guys came up with campaigns that existed already? It was this group over here, wasn't it?
I heard something.
I got my eye on you all.
Reach one.
Yes.
Each one, teach one. Do you have a phoning to look that up?
It's like Educate a Girl, Change a Village, or something like that.
Yeah. No, Girl Rising, it was a slang like that. All right, so speeding this thing up, I think this is great. Let's narrow it down. I'm a huge fan of this, Educate, Empower, Change, right? Because it's talking about, the topic is you're talking about, and it's part of the messaging here, right? Educate, empower, change. I'm sorry? Yeah.
So it's
just
educate, empower, and change.
It's powerful. It can be translated. It can be translated in many cultures. It can be translated in many languages.
Can we hear some of the different versions, how you would say it? Sorry, because you guys come all from these different regions, and we're doing this in English. If, think about it, how you would translate that when you get home now. Would that work in terms of language? Can we hear something?
Go ahead.
With this point, can you say that education empowers change?
So this is a big question mark because there can be a...
No. Education empowers change as the actual tag.
I like that.
And stuff, yeah. Empoderar.
In my language, you want us to say it in our language?
Well, just to test it, because the Spanish speakers just figured out it wouldn't work in their language.
In my language, in my language it would be Ruta, Juanafaza, Vetor.
And how does that sound in your ear?
Very simple.
Very simple? Which one is your language? What's your language?
No.
So I guess we can already...
Spanish word
Educate our future.
What you said? Empower what?
Empower our
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Change your future, educate
Empower.
our future, empower our future.
Empower our future.
I like that.
What about empowerment for future?
Empower future.
Empower.
Like something that stays.
Any ideas?
Change our future.
Go ahead.
Educate the future. Educate the future. Educate future. Educate for
All
the
right.
future.
Let's get everybody focused again.
Yes.
All right, so let's eliminate all the stuff that's not going to work.
All right. So educate one, change all. Did anybody look up if that was an existing
No,
campaign?
it's too long.
Yeah.
Way too long. We already have. Next.
Educate to elevate.
No.
No.
Next.
Education is key.
No excitement here.
Education the key.
What is it?
How about education is power?
There you go. Education
is power.
All right, so just
Yeah, I'm just looking in the. Okay, education is key.
Got it.
Education is you and me.
I got a quick
Hey, no
no.
judging, no judging. Education is us. I like that.
Education is us.
How about education for us?
And the number with the number 4.
Because for us is for change of society.
Yeah.
Education for change.
Let me. Okay, come here. Yeah.
We are the change.
And maybe let's try to find one that does not have the word education in it.
Yeah. It stays educated.
Lead for change.
What about
Learn to change. I like that. Do you want to write this down? Can I have the learn to change?
Empower change. There you go. That's the last one. Empower change. Oh, 5 years. Learn to change. Empower change. I like that.
Empower change.
See, part of as you're picking these things, like now we're getting into something a little more. I put it here too because it's like you want it to be short and quick. A lot of you saying, okay, how do we make it, a little bit shorter? So education empowers change is great, right? But how do we make that even smaller, right? Empower future. Education is power. Education is us. Education for us. Education for change. Learn to change. Empower change. Again, I have to say I'm a little biased for this one because you got empower
and change.
One of the 3 key words, and it's just short, sweet, and it also sort of denotes a movement, right? You're empowering change. What are you doing? What are you all doing? What do you all want to do, right?
Yes.
And that's empower change.
Sure. Question: is it empower change or empower change?
Empower. Really?
No, but is it like empower period change period like personal power? Or are we empowering change?
Well, what would you say based on this?
It wouldn't be empower. If you're looking at it from a design perspective, I would say empower period change period. And I know where you're going with that, right? But if you're looking at it from a hashtag perspective, right, it's empower change, right? But from like an advertising campaign, yes, you want to make sure you put that period there because it is two separate. You know, you're empowering you, and this is everything that you guys are talking about, right? And then creating change, empowering people, right? Empowering community, right? Change society. So that's why they're two separate elements, and we're just bringing together to, I think we have, I gotta be biased here, but I think empowered change is it.
What do you guys think? Yep.
I have a specific related to sports slogan.
Okay.
I can play, let's play for education.
That's very much sports related. If you exactly, I can play. Let's play for education.
So let's narrow these down. Let's go. Go ahead.
I think you totally messed us all up with your bias. All right. Let's do a hand raise again. Education empowers change. Nobody. Educate and empower change. I think you corrupted their minds with your bias. No, I'm gonna go. Empower future. Education is power. Education is us. Education for us. There you go. I'm gonna count this as 2. Education for us. 3. Excellent. Education for change. Ooh, there we go. 3. 1, 2, 3. Learn to change. 1, 2, 3, 4. Didn't you already raise your hand? 4, 5, 6. Just a question? Go ahead.
I think the learn to change is great, but I feel like it can mean anything. Like, it's like learn to change.
Again, take the example of it's on us.
But see, I feel like it's on us. Learn to change my clothes, learn to change my shampoo, my shower gel. It's on us.
Look, I mean, there's many of these campaigns that we use as an example. You have He for She, you have, Drink Up, which was, predicated. There's tons of these campaigns that have been done, and it's been as simple as, drink up, right? Drink up. It's, it was about drinking water and healthier water in America.
And also think about it more in the terms of what's going to stick to the campaign. So I know you don't like talking about branding products necessarily, but if I tell you I'm loving it, which brand do you think about? There you go. And nothing in that sentence refers to food, refers to McDonald's. So really this is going to be your message.
And exactly what you're saying. It's all about picking. That's what we're trying to distill it down, about picking those keywords that then get you to what is the theme and the messaging, and then get you to understand what is, what the message is overall. When you look at a campaign, right now you're looking at bits and pieces, right? And that's why you're looking at, the McDonald's advertising, of course, because they showed you the message. It told you the story. Now, going forward, that little phrase is what carries on, and that tells you everything about that entire campaign, right? It's on us. That was, that's the piece when we were creating it, and we said it's on us. It was the same thing going around the room and saying, oh, I don't know, or people can get it. When we said drink up, one of my biggest problems with the word we're saying drink up was I said people are going to start thinking about alcohol. We're talking about water. And kids under 9 years old, and they're like, well, kid under 9 years old, if he hears drink up, should not be thinking alcohol, right? But part of it was that we had to develop the brand and the messaging that, correlated to this, drink up, right? Or it's on us. So it's not just, so don't just look at this as a standalone, right? But it is going to be part of this. That's why I kept going back here, and I put the 4 corners here, because it's going to point to this, and then it's going to point to a much bigger a campaign. So that's why it's important to, distill all this down. Keep going. Let's see.
All right.
Let's see where this ends
So
up.
do you want to do
6.
another raise of hands for Learn to Change?
No, you had 6.
Yeah, we had 6. Now we have 2 left.
Wow. Wow, what happened?
All right. 2. How about empower change? So 1, 2,
Double
3, 4,
votes.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 25. All right, and 25 right here.
There's not 25 people here.
That's okay.
We had a
I
bunch
think
of
we get the message.
triple votes. All right, how much time do we have left?
like 13 minutes.
Union leaders.
Union leaders. Well, no, because we actually will have to excuse ourselves around 4-ish, a little bit after 4. Maybe take like 10 minutes so we can actually talk to you guys.
How much time do we have?
Because unfortunately we have to get on a plane back to New York.
No, how much time? Yeah, what time?
4:30.
What time is it?
Oh, so then we have like half an hour. Perfect.
All right, so let's keep going here.
So I think we then discovered where we want to be at right now. So everybody okay if I erase those, or?
I'm just curious, how will Empower Change be operated in tweets?
So we can talk a bit about that now.
So basically what you do is at this point now, right, you get into this phase which is called you put together a creative brief. Right, a creative brief basically starts to educate what it is. Now what are the assets that you need to create a campaign? So in this situation we're talking about, where do you start, educated girl, empower community educated boy and girl, and change society. So then what are the elements that we're going to look to use? Right, so sort of in the brief, you're going to look at and say, okay, phase 1 is we're going to create the sort of, the presence, right? So you're going to create a simple website, you're going to create the Facebook, the Twitter, right? And create all the different, sort of make this thing come to life. Number 1. Number 2 is you're going to start to look at and say, okay, what type of campaign do we want to run? And what available assets you have? Typically the way we work is we'll say, okay, what do we have to execute this campaign? So we're doing something with UNICEF, and we're doing this Imagine campaign. And Imagine campaign is utilizing the song Imagine, which is globally recognized song, and they're saying, okay, here's the brief, and what we want to do with this campaign is get it out on radio, get it out into the concerts, who's out there, and then how do we create the messaging? And the messaging is that they want everybody to sing the song Imagine. Download the app and sing the song in your own way. And then David Guetta is going to spin and create. So the call to action, is for people to karaoke the song Imagine in your own way. Imagine a better world, imagine a better society, and imagine a different world in 2030. And by virtue of, again, of using music, right? We find that music and sports are some of the most, passionate things that, get people really connected. So again, we put together that brief and design, and obviously, again, with 15 minutes, we're not going to have time to get really into that.
We probably have a little longer.
But it's about creating. The next thing we would do right now is somebody pull out your Google and find out what's out there for Empower Change. Right?
Oh.
Do hashtag Empower Change on Twitter, and let's
see
do
what's
some
out
research.
there.
Yeah. And educated girl empower community. We should also, right, the next thing you do with these campaigns is make sure now, hey, we got here, and it's like, oh, wait a second, is this copyrighted? Does somebody have it? Does somebody own it? Right? And a few folks mentioned that said, hey, look, this is something that somebody might have used. So you literally Google educated girl empower community quotations, educated boy and girl change society quotations, to see if it pops up anywhere, and see where it pops up to make sure that we're not infringing on somebody else's IP, somebody else's idea, vision, or another organization that tomorrow will come after all of us.
The professional service called Empower Change is a strategic consulting and coaching firm that helps nonprofit, government, business, and individual clients develop goal-driven strategies for success.
But what about the hashtag? Because hashtag is not owned by
And it's
anybody.
Empowered Change.
200. Yeah. See, that's great. See, when you see that, because that's awesome. That means that we
you guys
picked
want an
something
extra
so
phone to
powerful that nobody's really owned.
Mhm.
Right? When we looked at It's On Us, we looked at it, and all It's On Us was like in community groups and activist groups that were saying, hey, hashtag It's On Us. Right? And when we saw it, we said, wow, here's an opportunity to create a hashtag and actually owned that tag across the internet, literally. Across the internet, and that is powerful. So, the fact that you said there's only a couple hundred people, right, with something so powerful, here, you guys have an opportunity to literally look at and start to, in everything that you do, grab this hashtag and hashtag it as Empower Change, or something that defines what we've done here today and something that defines just overall what you've all come up with. Good.
Do you think it's too close to be the change? Is that such a famous quote, be the change which you see?
No.
Because it's also more like a quote. There's not. I don't know if there's like a. I don't think there's a campaign around it that actually.
It probably is. Be the change.
Be the change.
Looked at the hashtag "Be the Change" and it's almost 500,000. So I know it's completely different,
Yeah.
but similar.
What is
almost
hashtag
similar
Empower
message.
Change?
That was the 197.
What, 197?
No, just 197.
Yeah, 197. Just like that, not
that one.
Not with thousands.
That's incredible. That's insane. That's like 197 times that Empower Change right here in this room in one day. We could beat that, or just literally put messages out there and say, hey, look. And then literally when you Google Empower Change is one word, I bet you're not going to get that much either, because all that is tweeted gets out on Google. And again, this is how you start to build content. So part of the brief that we're talking about is we look at this and we say, okay, now what is our goal, right? How do we build content around the conversation? We're going to build content around the fact that, educate girls, empower community. So typically what we do in our foundation when we get to this stage, then we look at who are the logical players, right? Because we know that together we can create impact. Alone, it's going to be a long road and a fight. So we look at who is out there educating women, empowering communities, educating boys and girls, and looking to change society. We bring all these people together under the Empower Change sort of as a heading. This is what we're all going to do, because we all belong in different areas, and we bring everybody together, again, under the Empower Change. Again, just like It's On Us. We brought hundreds of organizations, thousands of colleges and universities, and millions of people together under the It's On Us. And as we're doing that brief, we start to identify who the partners are. And the way we always do it is we create a small committee of people, and we literally keep it very small. 8 or 9 people at the most that represent 8 or 9 different circles and pockets of influence, so that we can then from there start to grow the coalition. Because everybody basically represents a different seat at the table to then start to build out this movement, right? Because now somebody represents radio, television, another person represents a way to get into different communities, colleges, universities. Then we start to empower change, right? Because once you start to go from, you started with that 8, then you go to 20, then all of a sudden you have 150 people connected on different groups. Now you can't even use emails anymore, because you start to segment everybody out into the different sections. And that's what we did, again, even with the water campaign, which was actually a little bit more difficult. With the water campaign that we had to do, we had to engage private sector, public sector, municipalities in the public sector, schools under 9 years old. We also had to figure out how to measure water usage, and then how we were going to measure water consumption after our campaign. Because that's what the First Lady wanted to do, is measure whether or not she could impact health, and then bring in the health variable, which is saying that in America, the fastest growing community in diabetes, all because we drink sugars under 9 years old, and it changes our DNA in ways that it gives you diabetes and God knows what else down the road. So it's about she put a Coca-Cola can. And it's a fact. So we found out all the facts, and part of that brief, just like this, was okay, now what are the elements that we're then going to target the campaign around? What are the more powerful elements that we're going to get people emotionally connected to? And many of the things that we talked about here. Now we go back to this board, now that we have sort of a frame of reference and a brand identity.
And not only this, but you also then, you can literally walk back in the document that you just put together, and you can literally look at, okay, well, now what are the actions that we will take, and who are the people, not only from the community and the assets in terms of media, but also the concrete action steps, if you want. And I'm just going to put this back up here so we have it in front of you.
So that's pretty much how it works. And believe it or not, we've done hundreds of campaigns, where, again, we put together the brief, we bring the sort of a small steering committee, and then create a much bigger coalition and go out and execute. And because, again, it's around impact. It's around getting people really emotionally connected. And that's one of the things I was saying before. If there's something that I would love for you all to take away from today is that, you know, when we're looking at these campaigns, it's not about, you know, an agency does a campaign. All of you can do a campaign, can come up with a small campaign, get people together and execute and create a movement. All it takes is just 2 or 3 people to really create a movement. We're all so interconnected today that it's not about, you know, there are no hurdles. The only hurdle is whether or not you are committed to change, to empower change. And one of the things that we're going to do is, since we're working with the UN on the Sustainable Development Goals, and a lot of that messaging is, we will we'll create the brief on this, and then we're also going to submit it for them to consider it as part of a campaign, and we'll connect with Francis and make sure that you guys all find out about it. But I think that this is great what you've all put together, and it'd be great to,
Exactly.
if it was chosen for all of you to get the credit, maybe go to the UN and celebrate. But you know, I think that this is, you've all done a great job here. Ideally, we'd like to stay a little bit longer, but we also have to go to the airport and tease this thing out. But it requires a lot more than just another 20 minutes. And because it's just, you know, what we showed you and what we've done here today, what we did there at the White House, to get to this point, it took us weeks, literally. But you have to remember that we had a lot of personalities from, you know, East Wing and so forth that wanted to make sure that, you know, we didn't offend anybody and whatever it was, and how we were even coming through the process. So again, I just think I want to first and foremost give you guys an applause. You guys deserve it. It's important for you to understand that we took you through this process. It's not easy.
But
As
it's
you all
also
saw,
not done.
It wasn't
Yeah.
easy because most of you were sort of stuck a little bit. And then you came out, and now, you know, the last hour and a half to 2 hours, all of you have been pretty lit up, very engaged, and it's just been a change of emotion. And so for that, I think, again, kudos to you all. And I think this is a beautiful message. And I'll let Elian, as we
Thank
call
you,
her.
Sergio.
Yes.
Of course.
Well, if we're doing this, for example, it's for everybody. It's open sourced, right? So the whole point is, again, when we did, that's what I mentioned when we did the It's On Us, it's open source. So the whole idea is we're creating a platform, so then people that are passionate about sexual abuse, all of you here could go log in and change your Facebook and Twitter face, you know, your picture to the logo It's On Us. And that's part of what we say is a commitment. Now you've made a commitment to action to be responsible, not yourself, but for the people around you, and helping create that change. So movements like this is not about, you know, any ownership. It's about creating that platform so everyone can get involved. Because if we don't allow everyone to get involved, then how are you, you know, they're just weighing out enough money or time to go out there and campaign politically, if you will, right? And that's what the point is. And even with the water stuff, you can look these things up and you'll see it's easy. You just go on a website and it says, get involved, be a part of this, you know, create change, create your own community. So all the tools are there. And that's really the goal, is to create the awareness so then everyone wants to empower change. And that's why, again, we were trying to drive you through this, you know, sort of funnel down to something that, you know, that you could engage others, right? Not just what you all believe in, but something that when somebody else says, I want to empower change. I want to wear a t-shirt that says empower change. I am change. Right? And that's when you get people really emotionally connected to the conversation. If you look at some of the greatest, biggest movements of our history, again, it's all very simple. The simplest things are the biggest things. And what you've all done, again, I say kudos to you all, is you've come to this, and it wasn't us. We've just pulled it out of you and forced you, in some cases, right, to put your emotion out there and tell us. So again, thank you, and Elian will wrap up.
Well, and I just want to reflect back on what he said. Like, we've taken you through this process, and just to come back to where we started this morning. This morning we walked into a room with people full of ideas and things you truly cared about. So the first thing we of course had to do was to figure out what is it that we all care about and we commonly care about. So the two most concerned issues were education and gender equality. Now, how do you package them together? And I think that was one of the easiest parts of saying, okay, well, there is a gender imbalance in the education system. So now we know the problem, and what is going to be the solution is to create awareness and to basically all those other things that we walk through in terms of you got to empower a girl so she can change her community. You got to involve the entire society, be a team, boys and girls. So all these different solutions that you guys came up with based on the reflections, the brainstormings, have gotten you to create this overall message. So again, this message is a pretty big message in a sense where it's long, okay, but it's also, it explains itself. And I think some people had raised that as well, that I want to understand what it is that, you know, we're going to be talking about, the message that we're going to be sending out. And this is a very clear message. And I just want to, you know, make sure that where we started this morning, figuring out how we can solve the gender problem in education, to see that this is really reflected in here. And now Sergio is erasing it. I hope you all memorized it.
No, just take a picture of it. It doesn't come out on camera.
Yeah. But literally, there's not many people that don't want to live in a better society. So what is a good way to achieve this is through empowering young girls and boys equally to learn and change the world that we live in. So we didn't only just address education and gender, but there's a lot of like subtopics that are connected to this as well. And I think that will also allow a lot of people to share that same passion with you, because it feels like anybody can connect to this. And I mean, here in the United States, and from what I understand from you guys, even when you go home. So all right, we figured out the message, and then of course, how do you make it tacky? And you saw the process. It's nothing easy, and it doesn't get easier by being a lot of people or by being few people. It's really just how do you take it from broad to very narrow, so that at any point at any time in 5 years, I hear empowered change, and I'm like, yeah, that was a campaign we worked on with empowering young girls in the community to change society eventually. Maybe just because we do still have like 5 minutes, once you have all these, and Sergio gave you a pretty good idea of how, with the campaign at Public, we go about really getting the word out. But I just want you to think about it in the sense where who's in this room and who can we activate to get this message out? Because Sergio said there's 100 and something tweets about it. In this room alone, we can generate even more. So I understand you almost all come from different countries. So that would make that we can at least access 21 countries.
I think this also fits right on Twitter. This is all 140.
Yeah, that would be excellent. Put one big hashtag in front of it. No. So just think about it in that sense. You are your own person, but again, like you are here right now, so take advantage of that fact. 21 countries. Who has access to universities? Basically everybody, probably multiple universities. Each university has thousands of students from your country internationally. And I think you have your own communities. You have, all of you are in sports. So think about every single aspect of your life that you could really be reaching out to, on who you can activate to get this message out. And okay, so we are 21, and it was what, about 100 and let's say 50? 150 divided by 20. Anybody really good in math? Like 7. So let's say each of you has to get like 10 of their friends to tweet about it. Is that something that is feasible right here, right now? Well, if you're on Twitter, if you're not on Twitter, Facebook, something that, you know, I just want you to understand the power that you guys hold right here.
How many people have a Twitter account here?
Yeah. Yeah, we have
So
to
I
see you
think-
tweeting.
I want everybody to take out your phones right now, and this and this is only, it's less than 100 characters. Literally, that's the power of what we just created right now. You should be able to, I'm tweeting it right now. Educated girl, empower community, educated boy and
Sure,
girl,
please.
change
No,
society.
I will tweet.
And hashtag empower change. So you want to find my tweet? It's under hashtag empower change. Everybody should use this. Copy this and hashtag.
What do you do when you're not on Twitter? What other tools do you use to talk to your peers? Instagram.
There you go. Take a photo, Instagram it. Empower change.
And then
Let's see, and what Eliana is saying here is that you have, again, look at the reach that's in this room, geographic reach.
Geographic reach, but also in terms of, you know, the different, like you can reach from your university dean to some people know. I mean, everybody here has their own network. So figure we put all these networks together, what can we achieve with that? And I think that in itself is already a pretty powerful message that was sent out, and will definitely overthrow the other hashtags that were created.
This is awesome. I mean, all of you, your takeaway from this entire trip, you should all put everything in power change. Every tweet that you're going to be sending out, literally own the conversation. By the time you guys leave, you should be able to literally have already exceeded that 190 whatever number, and have owned that conversation. And that's the beginning of these movements, right? That's the beginning of it. It starts now.
And I mean, you guys were chosen or are here for a reason, because from my understanding, it's, you know, you are leaders in whatever community you come from. So just think of the power that gives you when you go back to your community, even if you don't use Twitter, even if you don't use Instagram. But all right, again,
We're popping up. Let's go.
he's going to be counting that. He wants to be one of the leading Twitter trends.
We hosted, no, but I mean, it's actually,
possible.
believe it or not, we hosted a summit in May. We brought together about 350 key media executives as well, and it's called Media for Social Impact Summit. So our hashtag was MFSI 2015, because every year we change the number. So MFSI 2016 and so forth. And it's a get together where we bring together media players to educate them about the power of media and the different things, campaigns that we've done and we're doing. And what we were doing throughout the entire event, we asked everybody to make sure that they use the hashtag MFSI 2015. So if you want to venture, go to MFSI hashtag 2015, and you'll see what some of the biggest media operators in the world were talking about at the UN. And again, just talking about the power of media for impact. And that's something that we hosted. And by the afternoon, to show you what 300 people in a room could do, we were the top 5 trending topic on Twitter. Only 300 people, and the reach that they had. And all they were doing was just having these conversations and literally owned, what was the social media for the day. Top 5 is pretty big. And, by the afternoon, which was pretty fascinating. And humbling, to say the least, because to know that in that room we had so much influence. And that's what we were telling everybody. Imagine what you could do, how we could change the world with just, we had 60% of the buying power of the world in one room. And just to show that just a couple of tweets and conversation about media for impact and the impact it actually created just in the convening. Educate everyone on what came out of this, and give everyone a hashtag to use it. And anytime you're whatever it is that you're tweeting about throughout this entire week, hashtag empower change.
And also, I know that we might have to leave, but I do know that there's some really nice cameras around here. So if you maybe do want to actually say something like this into camera and have a small Vine video, at least for archival purposes, or even if you can get it from them back and send that out. Yeah, and
Love the photo.
And this is also something I wanted to say. Just a photo. So while we might not have had the time, because our plan was, we would have loved to take you through the entire process, walk out of here today with a video. I mean, I'm really happy we at least got to do the Twitter a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that you get all the materials that we presented to you today. So I will be sending my presentation, the handout, and all supporting materials along with the brief that Sergio mentioned we will be giving to the UN. Of course, you guys should have a copy of that as well. And then Frances, I will be sending everything to her and you will be distributing it to the group. Excellent. And then I hope that this will allow you that in the future, if you have an idea of every time somebody buys a book, you should plant a tree, just do it. I mean, you don't need an entire workshop session, a bunch of people in a room to come up with this. If you're really that passionate about your topic, just walk through the steps. I mean, good feedback is always great and helpful, but you can make those things happen. And I hope that we were able to provide you with those tools today. And I really much want to thank you for coming up with such a great example of a campaign that will hopefully take off. And right after this, I will take my phone and as well tweet. Thank you. So thank you to all of you. That was excellent. Again, yeah. Tweet, tweet, tweet. I didn't even have service, did I?
Empower!